Guild Wars 2 Visions of Eternity introduces the Evoker class to the Elementalist, and this is basically about choosing one of 4 familiars, and each familiar has a respective attunement to it. So there's the Fire Fox, there's the Water Otter, there's the Air Hare, and there's the Earth Toad. And in this video, I'm going to be going over all of the class mechanics of the Evoker so that you can learn how it works and show you some interesting build ideas, because the Evoker has a lot of build diversity to it. So let's just get straight to the mechanics of the class. The Evoker class is very simple to play, but it can be a little bit difficult to theory craft your own build because there are just so many options. But there will be meta builds that arise, and you'll be able to follow other people if you don't like to theory craft. So in general, I would think that the Evoker is just an easy to play class, because all it does is add the F5 skill and a bunch of passives. So the F5 skill is the main mechanic of the class, and you get to change it based off of which you choose. So if I choose the Fire Fox, then I get to use the F5, and this charges based off of weapon skills used. So if you hover over the little icon here, there's 2 indicators here. The first one is the basic skill charge, and the second one is the empowered skill charge. So if I use any weapon skill, it will give me the basic skill charge, and you can see it's 1 out of 6. Now it is 3 out of 6, and it will charge faster if I use skills of the corresponding attunement. So I'm at 3 out of 6. If I use the Fire 2 here, now it will go to 5 out of 6. So it charges twice as fast for using the corresponding attunement, right? So if I choose the Fire Fox, I get a lot more value from using the fire skills. And once you fully charge it, you can use the F5 skill, and they're all instant casts, and that one just shoots a little bit of a fire off, which does burning damage. And it's not too important, but it's instant cast, so it's just nice extra damage there. But what will happen when you use the basic skill is that it gives you another charge on the center pie there. So there's the outer ring, which you can see here, which is the basic skill charging, and that charges faster. And then you use the skill, and that will give you the familiar basic skill. You use that, and that gives you charge towards the empowered skill. So you're just using this constantly, and once you get the empowered skill, now this is going to have an animation. All the empowered skills have animations. You have to cast them. You can't use them while using other skills. And the fire one will give you the ability to spread your burning to nearby enemies. So what you want to do with this is just put a ton of burning on the target, and then after you do that, you will spread that burning to nearby enemies, and then you can start casting your basic ones again. Now you can charge up your next basic after your empowered is ready, but you generally want to be using your skills whenever they're ready, the basic, because you want to be charging up your empowered. So you don't want to delay it, and it's instant cast anyways, so it's generally you just want to kind of just spam this whenever it's off cooldown. So not that difficult to use. The water one is a bit of healing and regeneration, and if we charge up the water here, we will get to see the empowered one, and that will give us so this one gives a stun. So it's a ground targeted ability. I have instant ground targeting on, but it's 900 range, and you throw out the ability, and yeah, so your familiar will shoot a bubble at the targeted area, which does a stun and creates a water field that will cleanse conditions and heal and give regeneration to nearby allies. So great support skill there. Then we've got the air one. So let's show the hare familiar off. So we have to go out of combat, and this one will give us zap. So when we use it, it's an instant cast. Great for like fresh air burst builds, because it will increase the critical strike damage dealt to the target. Now I believe this is only your damage dealt to them, because there are no unique modifiers like this for PvE, but you'll see the target has the buff above them, or the debuff above them, and it lasts for 5 seconds. During that time, you'll do more critical damage to the target. So you want to use the instant cast right before one of your bursts land, and then you'll be able to do even more damage. Is my sound a little bit loud here? Maybe. Could be. But now we're going to get the empowered skill. So we've used the last basic, and the empowered Hare ability, which has a cast time, is just going to put a bunch of damage on the target. It does a lot of hits there, and it will do more damage to isolated targets because it bounces between them. So it's great single target damage, not great AoE though. Now the Toad one is quite powerful too. So what it does is it will daze enemies around you. So they could be behind you. I believe, is it only in front of you? Dazes nearby enemies. So it should do behind. Oh, because this is a golem, it doesn't daze it. Yeah, so it is dazing enemies around you, and it gives you barrier, and it will do a bit of damage. So nice CC there. Then the empowered ability is very interesting. It gives some cripple and bleeding and protection, and it will create a zone of impassable barrier, which is kind of nice in PvP situations. Although the barrier is kind of small and it has a cast time, and then it has a wind up for it to kind of like create the zone. And so it's got to be used in situations where you've already got the target locked down so that you can ensure that you land it. But it's kind of hard to land, right? So we use it here, and say for example I use this here, I can use it while moving, but then the toad is behind me, and then it has a little bit of delay before it creates the zone. So it's not the most powerful empowered ability, but the basic one is definitely very powerful because it's a no animation skill, because the basic ones are no animation, and it's a daze. So you can just interrupt people without having a cast time there. Let's go over the traits. So the traits are not that interesting for the Evoker. It's mostly the theory crafting of the familiar and the skills. But the traits are, so this one is the Earth synergy. You gain protection when you disable an enemy, so this works very well with the Toad because you daze whenever you use this, and it will also give you extra protection if you have chosen the Toad. So great defensives there. And then the top one is basically the Hare synergy. So it will essentially, whenever you use the familiar skill, you gain Fury, and you will gain, your next attack will do an arc of lightning to just do a little bit of AoE damage. And it will also give you an extra stack of that buff if you have the Hare or the Air familiar selected. So it'll give you 2 stacks of just extra damage. So if I have the Air familiar here, and I have the top trait enabled, and I'm just using the Hare a lot, I'm gaining stacks of this buff. And let me use this here, and so I can use this, and it actually triggers itself in a way, I think. So that's pretty nice. And we got the buff here, so let's do the extra arc lightning. So basically you've got your power damage for this. Even if you're not using the Hare, you probably still want to use this for extra power damage. And this is defensive. And then the middle one is just to burn enemies whenever you use your heal skill. I feel like in a lot of situations you probably would still use this instead of that, because your heal skill is not going to be used that often, but it is a decent, it's a 1 stack of burn. It's not amazing, right? Now we've got our minor trait here, which improves the effectiveness of boons that you have. So the might boon will give you 10 condition damage per stack. So if I have a lot of might on me, that's 25 stacks, I'll get an extra 250 condition damage. Then regeneration boon, which doesn't stack, it just gives you 20% increased healing, which is nice. And you'll get 15% crit chance when you have Fury. So that's extremely powerful, because as an Elementalist, you really want that crit damage if you're going for power builds, or crit chance rather. And Fury in PvE gives you 25%, so the extra 15 is giving you 40% crit chance. Very powerful. And then protection is also going to give you incoming condition damage reduction. So protection is basically also resolution for Elementalists with the Evoker trait line. So pretty powerful, because that's just passive. You get that baseline, And even if you're, say, not a condition damage build, you'll still get might randomly, and you'll still do more condition damage. And say you're not a support build, you'll still have more healing for your self-sustain if you have regeneration. So all of these boons are going to be really powerful on Evokers. So this is a really good trait. Now we've got here Fiery Might, even better trait. Burning you inflict is 10% stronger, and you gain might when you inflict burning. So if we take this trait and we just spam might on the target, it's a 1/4 second internal cooldown. This probably needs to be nerfed. I'm just gaining so much might. This thing gives me more might, but yeah, we just gain so much might. And if you're running a build that is based around burning enemies, this is pretty much going to give you all the might that you need, and it gives you even more might if you have selected the Fox as your familiar. So you don't need any might generation other than this trait pretty much, and you're going to get the 250 extra condition damage basically for free by just using your burning build. So really powerful there. Then we've got Elemental Balance. So this is your Condi trait basically, and this is your power trait. All this does is it gives you 5% extra damage dealt and 5% extra damage reduction passively, and then depending on whether you are above 50% health, you'll gain even more, 5%, so 10% damage dealt. And if you're below, then you'll get 10% damage reduction. So keeping your health high will allow you to do more damage, but when you're under pressure, it'll make you take less damage. Just nice passive damage there for power builds. And then Soothing Evasion grants regeneration to nearby allies when you dodge, and every time you give regeneration to allies, you will also heal them. And that healing that you give when you give them regeneration is going to be increased if you have the Otter familiar selected. So you just give a lot more healing to allies by dodging or just giving regeneration, which you're going to have a lot of access to from just the water familiar skills. And if you're using a staff, the staff 5 gives a lot of regeneration as well. So extra healing there for support builds. Now the familiar's prowess is a very powerful minor trait. This gives you a temporary bonus for 5 seconds after you use a familiar skill. So depending on which one you have. So extra healing to others if you have the Otter, extra condition damage if you have the Fox, extra power damage if you have the Hare, and extra damage reduction when you have the Toad. And this can stack. So it has a max duration of 15, but if you keep using your familiar skills really fast, it can stack up. And that's going to give you just passive effects, just like this trait. So Evoker has a lot of nice passive stat boosts. But the Grandmaster traits are very powerful as well. So this improves the effect of the familiar's prowess. So if you have the Fox, instead of getting, I believe it was, 10%? Now you get 25% extra condition damage. That's a huge modifier for condition builds. 30% extra healing to others in the Otter, 25% power damage with the Hare, and it's going to give, instead of 15% incoming damage, it's going to also give 15% incoming reduced condition damage. So that's a powerful passive addition, but the Familiar's Blessing is, so you get that when you use the familiar skills, but you can pretty much stack that up permanently, and it will also heal you whenever you get that effect. But this one is sort of similar. Whenever you use the familiar skills, you'll remove conditions from yourself, and then you'll just grant boons to nearby allies. So the more DPS oriented builds are going to go for this for the damage modifiers, and like the quickness DPS builds are going to use this for the alacrity or quickness. So you've got the option to play an alacrity DPS or an alacrity healer, or you've got the option to play a quickness DPS or an quickness healer. Though I believe you'll probably play alacrity healer because it's naturally going to work out with the Otter, and then the quickness DPS naturally works out with the Hare. So this is, I believe, also a pretty good trait in PvP modes because it still gives alacrity and quickness in those modes, unlike in other specializations where they don't allow you to have alacrity and quickness in PvP because it's too overpowered. But this is a pretty nice trait because it gives condition cleanse and boons. This one gives passive bonuses and healing. So it's really just a build theory crafting decision. Do you need more healing? Then probably go for this. Do you need more cleansing? Then probably go for this, because the passives, they're kind of similar, to be honest. But this trait is very interesting. So when you choose this trait, it locks out all your other attunements depending on which attunement you have or the familiar you have selected. So if I choose the water otter, then all of my attunements become water attunement, and I cannot leave water attunement. But what this will do is it will make your familiar skill charge faster. So you can't leave the water attunement anyway, so you're getting the extra benefit regardless, but it would normally take 3 skills to fully charge it. Now it only takes 2 skills, and whenever you use the empowered familiar skill, it will recharge all your weapon skills. So immediately the idea I have for this is if I have a staff, so if I want to go for like a support build and I go for staff, then I can stay in staff and I can use the water familiar. Then I can do some combos here, and now I've got the water empowered. Now I've got the familiar, and I can just use 2 skills, and you get them really fast. And I can just keep using the 2 skill and then the 3 skill to combo it. Now I've got my familiar again. Now I can do this, and this gives me a water field, so I can combo with that as well. And there's just a lot of ways that you can keep using skills while only being on one attunement. And so it's a nice supportive idea, although I wouldn't prefer to just stay in water, to be honest, because you're only healing then. But if you only want to heal, then you can just keep healing because it gives you your skill cooldowns back faster. And obviously if you wanted to play a fire attunement version of this, you could be in the scepter and you take the fiery might, right? And then you can just spam 2 into 3, use the fire familiar. Maybe I just spam auto attacks until I get the 2 up, use the familiar, and now I've got the thing, so that recharges all of my skills, and recharging my skills allows me to get more familiars skills. And now we can use the 2. We're kind of actually slow. I might have waited to use the familiar there too long, but here we can charge it up in 2 skills, and now we recharge our skills, and now we can get our familiar again. Now we use our skills again. And yeah, even though it allows you to use a lot more of the fire attunement skills with this trait, you don't have the other attunements. Now in some cases this is a really good trade-off, in some cases it's really bad, right? Because leaving the fire attunement sure is pretty important. If you're using a fire build, you want to leave the fire attunement when those skills are on cooldown, but then you can't go back into the fire attunement for another 9 seconds, right? But when your fire skills are on cooldown, you can't really do anything. So it is a bit of a trade-off, but I think it's a really interesting trait with a lot of options for play. But in general, I think this will just be an easy option that isn't necessarily meta in all situations. I think that this will just be better because the extra condition damage is just good, and you can probably do a lot more damage with that as a result, but you never know. So that is the traits. The traits are not too interesting, but the utility skills, rejuvenate just heals you and charges your familiar skill. So if you really, for example, that build I was just using, there was a little bit of a downtime in using my familiar skill, so I could use this to get to my empowered skill faster, and that would allow me to get to my recharge faster of the empowered skill. So that can be nice, but other than that, it doesn't really do anything. They are meditations, so there are some things that synergize with meditations. I believe was it the Bavanisos relic? So yeah, the Phenom relic. So you can gain protection whenever you use a meditation, but that could be useful, I believe, actually. But yeah, that's not too good. I think there are a lot of other better heal skills, to be honest. You probably use the Signet, to be honest, instead. But the utilities are all based around one of the familiars. So the fire meditation is just going to give might to allies and burn the target. And then it's also a break stun if you have the Fire Fox as your familiar. So if you don't have it selected, then it's not a stun break. And what that means is basically you can use all the meditations and they're all stun breaks, but only for the familiar meditation that you've chosen, right? So you can't have 3 stun breaks, you can only have 1. So I like that design. It's a little bit more balanced, but kind of interesting. So the water one is just convert conditions on nearby allies into regeneration. That can synergize really well with this trait to give extra healing and even more cleansing. And of course, it'll be a stun break if I have chosen water as my familiar. The hare's agility is the air meditation, and it's a stun break if I choose the air familiar. And it's a evade that will move you in a direction, right? Like kind of like Twist of Fate, but a little bit longer range. And it will give you 5 stacks of hare's agility. And that is basically the trait here, right? That you get passively when using your familiar. So you want to use that and then immediately do a burst of damage with many hits because you want to get all those to trigger. So I'll use it and then I'll attack, and you can only use 1 charge per, I believe, half a second there. And then the earth meditation will be a stun break if you've chosen the toad, and it will be a half-second block, and then it will give you protection, and it will explode for bleeding damage nearby if it successfully completes. So if you interrupt it, then it won't do that. But essentially, this is a really short block, and I don't think that this skill is that powerful because it's very reactive to use a block for a half a second. But if you use it as a stun break, then generally you're going to be blocking something that's going to do a lot of damage to you because people are generally going to throw damage at you when you're stunned. So it can be nice for that little bit of stun break. And if you're going for a condition build, then I guess it does some bleeding there. Now the elite skill is very interesting. This will summon all 4 familiars to use their empowered skills. And all of the familiar empowered skills are basically tab targeted skills except for the otter. So the otter will basically decide the ground targeting of this. So it's a 900 range ground targeting. And so reminder, the earth one creates a ground targeted AoE that will block off the area. The air one will just shoot a bunch of bolts at the target. The water one is a stun and will create a water field in the area. And the fire one will do a burn and it will spread burning to nearby enemies. So what this means is that I can shoot it at range, and the earth ability is now ranged because it used to be on me, but now it's on the target because it's using the water familiar as its targeting. So that can be really nice for creating the earth area at range because it's easier to land there. And then it also stuns, so it creates the area, it stuns, and then it zaps the hell out of them because it does the air one and the fire one as well. So it does a decent amount of damage, a decent amount of CC, and since it creates a water field as well, you can also combo that with the blast finishers and leap finishers to heal yourself. So it does a lot of things. This is a really powerful elite skill, and it, even if it's not the right situation to use it, you'll generally get something useful out of it at any time because it does damage and it heals you. So here's my idea for an open world kind of bursty evoker. I'm using Marauder gear with Scholar Runes. You can go for Zerker if you want more damage. Fireworks Relic, you can go for whatever you want for damage there. I've got air and force sigils on my Scepter Warhorn. And then I'm just going for all the damage traits in water, all the damage traits in air with fresh air, and then I have the damage traits in Evoker and Familiar's Focus. So I don't want the extra sustained damage of quickness because a lot of the animations of the Scepter are instant anyways, so I don't really care to have quickness. So I just want the extra 25% damage when I use a familiar skill. And specialized elements, not amazing because we do want to be swapping out to do the burst. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do specific combos. So what I'll do is I will do fire 2, fire 3, and then swap to air to get the fresh air bonus on it. But then I can also use the hare familiar skill, which will add increased crit damage, right, with the zap debuff. And then while we've got the fresh air buff, we can also do a air 5 lightning orb with the arcane echo and do it twice. So we've also got the water combo, so we can do 2, 3, and then swap, use the familiar, and then the air 2 and 3. And we can use the hare to get extra hare's agility, and then we can just auto attack with that, and it'll do lightning chains. I'm going to use the 5-4 here, and then I will swap to water to do the water combo. You have to be targeting, I believe, for the air 2, and they just died, so I didn't get the ability up. You have to target the empowered skill as well, but you don't have to target the what's it called, the familiar's basic attack. It's a ground target, so you have to use it in the area. So you need to target with kind of like action combat ground targeting for the basic attack, but you need to tab target for the empowered ability. So that can be a little bit different in gameplay that you might not be used to at first. Let's stun break this. Use arcane echo on that. Arcane, do the second one. We'll do the fire combo, swap in for fresh air. And another thing is that the empowered familiar skills from your elite skill do not trigger the traits that give you stuff when you use your familiar skill. So it's not that powerful as you think it would be, but it's still pretty good if you need some extra damage and you got some space to use a skill there. So here we're going to do the water combo, get the familiar out, and just a lot of damage. So of course, the combo is just going to be start in water, do 2, 3, swap to air, 2, 3, use the familiar, do the same thing in fire, start 2, 3, go into air. I'm going to use the air empowered first here, and then the familiar. So you easily get the familiar, right, when you swap into air, because you spam the 2 and 3 out instantly, and that should give you 4/6 of your basic familiar. And that means that whatever you're using your fire skill or your water skill will get the zap extra crit chance on. And yeah, that's pretty much the idea of this build. It's not that, complex. You're just pressing that combo off cooldown, running around really quickly, and it's kind of fun like that. So this next build is going to be another open world one. It's just a celestial build with the scepter and focus. We're going to go for as much burning as possible with earth and bursting sigils, and the Balthazar rune, and the relic of the fractal. So we could probably optimize our damage better if we went like Trailblazer or maybe Vipers, but honestly there's no need. This build does a lot of damage, and the Celestial is going to make you extremely tanky. And since you kind of want to just free cast, it is going to allow you to be so tanky that you don't need to, stop and dodge attacks. So we've got that there. And then here we've got just all the burning stuff with fire. Another thing that's important is we're gaining protection from the auras. We gain fire aura because of the specialized elements, since it pretends that we are swapping into fire attunement every time we use the empowered ability, and we get sunspot every time that happens, which gives us more damage, and it's going to give us that fire aura, which also gives us protection. We also have the written in stone, which is going to give us the passive movement speed and a stun break, and we've got armor of earth as well, just in case we need a second stun break, because we want to just free cast here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We're gonna do that. Use the familiar off cooldown. Oh, and I am being stunned non-stop here, so that's not gonna be good. We need to actually keep our distance so we can jump off that. Jump over that, I mean. We need to move here. And just keep using the familiar. We got the empowered, so that's gonna give us this. I want to dodge over this familiar. Dodge this, familiar. Like every 2 skills is a familiar, so you have to constantly use it. Jump soon, familiar. Now the empowered, And if there's anything near the main target, it's just gonna die to burning. Like that Moa, that Moa was just, it just died because I spread my burning. It's funny. Okay, let's dodge this. I got interrupted on my heal skill. But we need to jump over the next one. He's moving over here. Okay, and use our empowered. Use the familiar. Okay, stun break this, dodge through this. Like, it's pretty easy to play, as you can see. Oh, I'm getting knocked down. Get protection. Oh, dodge out of the way. It's not very mobile, though. That's the issue with the build. It's not very mobile. So we're going to need to keep our movement a little bit in these situations against these bosses. So jump over this. Actually, we can heal ourselves here a little bit using the water from the procession, the elemental procession. So yeah, keep that on handy. And let's use this. So yeah, you can see what is the burn tick looking like? It's only 3k right now, but I could be doing more if I was not under so much pressure here. But yeah, I healed up quite easily from that elemental procession, and then once I was able to keep using my signet skills, because I have the signet passives even when it's actively used, so I can resustain pretty easily from the healing power. I gotta keep moving, use the signet, use the familiar, and yeah, it's just a really easy build to play. I don't think this is a build that I would personally use too often, unless I just wanted to, mindlessly do damage. But it's nice. I think it's a cool little easy option for people, and we're gonna use a procession here as well. I'm gonna get knocked down. Oh, I dodged it. Yeah, we need to use the 3, and we have to remember that our empowered skill recharges all of our skills, so we kind of want to use them before empowering, right? And then we empower here, and then we can use them again, and then it allows us to familiar as well. So you're spamming the familiar skill quite often. And familiar, and then we've got the empower in one more skill, so we want to use 2 more. Getting CC'd. I have slow on me from the thing. Okay, now we want to use the empower so we can get our cooldowns back. Jump over this. Oh, I can't stun break that. Familiar. Oh, I'm stunned again. I need to dodge over those. Yeah, this is not the most interesting thing to fight around. It's mostly I just need to do the mechanics. Now we got the empowered. We can recharge our skills. Do the familiar again. As soon as you do the empowered one, you can basically do the basic familiar as well, because you've got all your cooldowns, so therefore you've got the basic really fast. Do the empower. Do my thing again. Jump over this. So yeah, you get the idea of this build, pretty much. Alright, so here's a support water otter staff evoker build. I'm not using these specialized elements because you can't really get access to other boons if you just stay in water. So I think you do need to swap attunements still, but we're still going to be able to use the otter quite a bit. We're going to give a lack rate to allies and quite a bit of healing. And then we will be able to do some combos with blast finishers, cleanse a lot of conditions, and just survive. So yeah, that's the traits. I've gone minstrels with the monk rune. I've got the transference and benevolence on, that's actually a marauder staff. It should be minstrels. And you can go for harriers if you want as well, but minstrels is just inherently broken by concept. And then Caracosa relic, because we're doing a lot of blasts. That's not going to heal me, but it's going to heal my allies more. And we're going to put on the environment to extremely threatening. So this is the most damage that I can do. I'm going to go in with protection, and I'm going to give myself protection. Spam dodges, because that will give me healing. Put down the water field here and heal through it. And let's do the water here, and then give myself the power. I'm going to dodge. We can use the water signet as well. Do this, and that will give auras. Auras don't actually heal. This isn't a Tempest, so it's not amazing to do that. But we got the empowered Otter there. We're going to do the heal skill because that'll allow me to use the basic again. Water 5. We'll dodge. Use this. We're an Otter, so I should be doing that right now. We've got the empowered one, so we'll do this into the Earth 2, into the 3, and just heal a lot. And then we'll probably give out maybe some fire attunement buffs, maybe a little bit if we need to do that. And we can water. Now let's heal combo again. And heal to get up the healing. We got the empowered there. Heal some more. And you can see I've got permanent alacrity, permanent regeneration. I don't have too many of the other boons. So maybe this isn't the best boon provider unless I optimize for that. But I'm optimizing to survive right now. So if I'm in a normal PvE situation, I'm not taking this much damage. So I can blast the fire field with the earth a little bit more. And I can give you a little bit more might to your allies. But otherwise, yeah, the build heals a lot, as you can see, if you need to focus on that. It gives permanent alacrity while doing that. It gives protection from the earth attunement. It gives might, and I believe it does not give fury. So if you wanted to give fury to your allies, you'd need to go for the other stuff here. So you can go for this, and that'll give fury to your allies. So if you're going for like a pure boon build, go for Fox's Fury. If you want to just go for pure sustain, then go for this to cleanse conditions. But you have enough condition cleanse, to be honest, so probably want to go for the Fox Fury, yeah. And you've got more slots to give utility to your allies there. And yeah, that's pretty much the idea of the support build. So this final build is a PvP build that uses the Toad. It's a lightning rod evoker, and we're just using the normal lightning rod kind of build here. And we can use the power damage traits. I've actually got the earth trait that gives you, whenever you disable enemies, it gives you protection. So we've got a lot of protection, and we've got the Grandmaster that gives you, I believe, condition cleanse whenever you use your familiar skill. So we have protection, we have condition cleanse, and in the past, these lightning rod builds have been extremely squishy, still kind of are, but now you have protection and condi cleanse, so it's not as squishy as it used to be. You have a lot more sustain. Though the healing is not amazing, you kind of have to get the healing from the Signet heal, or you could use maybe another heal skill that gives you more healing. But yeah, this is kind of the ideal of a Toad build, because the Toad gives you a daze with no animation, and that will trigger lightning rod, so it'll do pretty good damage. It gives you barrier as well when you use the Toad familiar, so it's just kind of naturally a great PvP familiar. And even though I'm more of an air spec, I'm using the earth familiar. So not always when you use a familiar do you have to specialize into that attunement. Maybe you're just using the familiar because you like that effect. So that's kind of interesting here. But we go into this fight, immediately use our fire combo, and they go down. Now I'm going to try to use the empowered skill here to block them off with my blink, go in front of them with it. But it didn't really work so well. This is a fresh air evoker here, I believe, and I don't think I can chase them because they have super speed, so I'm going to back off, and I will use my water skills to heal. I have to use my empowered thing here. I use the elite skill, which creates the CC there, and actually get a nice combo off on them because of that. So the water skill, right, has a stun on it, and the earth skill creates the terrain, right? So using it defensively there was actually pretty good, but it wasn't enough for me to survive, so I'm taken out anyways. But that was a potentially nice combo regardless. So you're still not like a duelist that can survive outnumbered like that, and I overextended quite a bit. But we're gonna get some swiftness here. We do get swiftness from the Air 5 from swapping into air attunement. And so we've got all of our bases covered for a versatile PvP build. But let's go for the revive on our ally here by using our CC first. But we actually want to go for this Harbinger and put some pressure on them before we go for the res, because we've got all our skills off cooldown. We might as well do them first and then go for the res. And we're going to rally our ally as well, so we don't need to go for the res anyways. Now I'm looking for a little bit of a defense on our home node. I've got my interrupt on my toad familiar ready, so I'm going to try to use that to interrupt them. I don't want to use it while I'm already stunning them with a air skill, so I want to use it before, because the daze will basically break their stun, right? Because if you overlap a daze over a stun, then they just are dazed and not stunned. So you kind of have to be careful of the timing of your earth familiar, but regardless, just spamming it kind of off cooldown is just going to give you value, right? Because you get barrier and you daze them, but you want to make sure that you time it not during one of their evades, because you can't evade it, even though it basically has no animation. People are evading all the time in PvP. So we do our air 3, and then we do the stun. We want to wait for the earth familiar, then we do it after we know that our CC hasn't landed. Maybe use it in the cast time of something else, like the earth 4. Even though I daze them into a stun, the stun lands guaranteed, right? Because they can't interrupt the stun skill. So it's just extra damage from the lightning rod, and you know, it's sometimes going to give you the extra barrier that you need to survive. And we want to keep progressing our earth familiar anyways, right? Because we want to get the empowered familiar. So sometimes just cycling through the familiar is going to be useful here. And our teammates rally here, so actually we're extremely outnumbered after getting that down, so we're going to be killed again here. We do have a lot of power creep in the game right now, and some things are just going to do a lot of damage to you. It's a very bursty kind of meta, but if we play with our team correctly and we are paying attention to when we are out of cooldowns and get out of combat during that, we should be fine. Gonna go on this conduit here, use our stun. We miss the stun, and they're gonna run away and try to use their hammer from range. I have the daze, but they're blocking. I use the daze into their block, and now I'm being focused by, I believe that's the Gale Shot. Yeah, so the Gale Shot is using their ranged abilities, and we just want to dodge this with our air 5, get on top of them so we can use the empowered earth to create the field, and they can't move right now. I can use my procession of earth, or the procession of elements here. Yep, I'm going to use that, but they move out of the range. I still get a decent amount of healing from it, and that's going to keep me topped off, but I didn't get a lot of CC from that. Now they're blocking with the shield, so I'm going to precast my air 3 to try to stun them, but they're going to be taken out anyways by my allies. And it looks like their Evoker is going to try to use a bunch of skills on me. I try to line of sight and back off. I take a huge burst from, I believe they had the Hare ability, right? This guy's for sure using the Hare. So I got hit with that. My ally's going to heal me though, and we're just going to finish off this kill because he's basically used everything to finish me, but my allies were there. So I believe, yeah, so we have 3 Evokers on our team. Evoker's a pretty powerful class right now, I believe, but it's also a very diverse class because we have an Evoker that's basically water and support with staff, like I showed in PvE. You can also use that in PvP. And then I don't know what the other Evoker is, but I'm like a DPS Evoker, so there's a lot of build diversity for the Evoker class. We take out the Gale Shot there, because they're squishy and I have a lot of burst damage. And this Harbinger we need to take out next. So we don't... Okay, I'm going to use the elite skill there for the CC, but they move out of it. It does have a bit of a delay, so you might want to use it preemptively into one of your CCs, right? Because the water bubble, which is the stun, has a bit of a... It has like a travel time, right? So... yeah, you kind of want to use it defensively, or like when enemies are coming towards you, not like to chase enemies. Or maybe if you're fighting on a node, then you can use it. Very powerful for fighting on nodes, actually, yeah. So we get those kills, and we want to rotate into Far. Far node is going to give us the decap, and our team looks to be fine in the other nodes, although they just got the relic, which is going to give them a lot of volatility and damage so they can maybe kill our supports. The Evoker respawns here. We're going to go for them. They use the Arcane Shield, so that's one of their stun breaks. I go for them again. That's another stun Arcane Shield, so that's their elite. He used a procession on me is what that means. But we're going to sustain through that using the water skills. Maybe get the Toad there to interrupt them, but they daze. I'm going to blink on them to try to use as much as I can. But I'm pretty much out of cooldowns now. They're pretty much out of cooldowns. But my elite is coming off. I'm going to use the elite here. And they run right into it, as you can see. And they get stunned by the procession of elements. And it does all the air and fire ones as well, which just do tons of damage. So that might have been what he used on me before to do so much damage, was the procession of elements. Because it gives you the air one as well, which does a lot of single target damage. The fire one, I don't know if that does too much power damage. But yeah, the air one doing damage. They're getting stunned by the water one, which is also giving me lightning rod damage. And so just landing that is huge. Now, I have my earth thing. I'm going to try to get them with it, but they're running away. So it's kind of hard to land the empowered earth familiar when people are running away from you. So you either need to stun them first and then do it, or you need to kind of like fight on node with it or have them coming towards you. Because yeah, the earth it's a little bit delayed, so they're just going to run out of range of it when it happens. Now this Harbinger is here. My ally is really low, and I'm going to try to get a nice burst there with the Earth Familiar and the Fire 3. And the Harbingers just use their heal, so we're kind of out of stuff here. I ate the Supersonic Arrow from the Gale Shot, so I'm in a really bad spot. I get downed pretty much here. Yeah, I'm going to get downed. And I believe that's, yeah, the Paragon actually vengeanced so that they could revive me. And they almost get the revive, but the Gale Shot gets to stomp beforehand, and they're going to die to vengeance. And the Gale Shot is dancing on my corpse for some reason. I don't know. But we're going to respawn here and use our... So we swap into air to get swiftness. I'm going to save my 5 skill. I don't need more swiftness here, probably, because I can travel with the 4 skill. The Harbinger there is rotating in, but our team is already getting a kill on our home. We've lost pretty much the map, so we just need to get some momentum again. Start out by going for this Evoker. Oh, there's 2. They actually have 2 Evokers too, so I think that there's 5 Evokers in this match. And we land a nice Earth 5 into the Earth Familiar and burst them. I use my elite skill, but they're also bursting me. I think they might have used their elite skill. I can't tell, but yeah, they did a lot of damage to me as well. They might be running the same build as me too, so they have a Fresh Air and maybe a Lightning Rod Evoker. So once again, a lot of build diversity on this class. And I'm not going to cap mid. I want to go into far. Their Gale Shot here has the sword buff, so maybe we want to stop him there, but we're going to allow someone else to cap mid. And we're losing home, but we can just cap far. It looks like we way over rotated here, and we left home and we just had 4 go to far. So I'm going to cap this, because if we don't cap this, then we've extremely overcommitted. We want to make sure that we at least get this, but the rest of our team is going for that kill on the Gale Shot, and that's pretty much going to secure the win here, because we can just stand on this node. It's an unranked match, but you know, you don't want to throw, because sometimes people are playing for their dailies. Even though we're all beta characters, so none of us are playing for dailies. But yeah, that is going to be the Evoker. This is one of the coolest elite specializations, I believe. Just from the fact that the theory crafting and build diversity, it's just one of the cooler designs. So with that being said, if you guys want to see more Evoker builds, I will be doing those in the future when, you know, the full expansion is released. This is just a beta. But you kind of get the idea of how the elite spec works. So if you have any questions, obviously ask those in the comments. Let me know what you guys think of the Evoker, and I will see you all next time.